Hello, everybody. I am so excited about this episode. I am going to be speaking with Gayle Martz. Now, you may not know her by name, but let me tell you, you do know what she invented and what she made possible. Gayle Martz transformed the travel world, making it possible to put pets, particularly dogs, like that cute one you might see on her lap any second, on planes for air travel. She is the inventor of the Sherpa Carrier for pet travel. Please say hello to Gayle Martz, an inventor, an innovator, and a businesswoman and mentor to many. Thank you, Gayle.
Great to be with you, Diane. I'm so happy. Coco and I are so pleased to be joining with you today so we can talk to people to make them aware of how they can take their pets safely wherever they go, comfortably and stylishly. And we have Coco right here who's with me, and her tote around town is right here, right next to me. So we're not going anywhere. We're going to be sitting here right with you doing our interview today.
I am so excited about this. Now, Gayle, you truly transformed an industry. You were working in what capacity in the airlines when all of a sudden you said, this could be better if we could bring our pets with us. Tell us how this all started for you.
Well, it began in 1988 when I had Sherpa, my dog, and I wanted to be able to travel with her. And Coco wants to go back in her bag now, so
Huh?
she's going back in her Sherpa tote around town so she can just be comfortably in there while we talk. So you couldn't take a pet on a plane. And we're talking about a small pet. So now, back then, you would have to just check them into the cargo area or leave them at home. So there was no way to do that. And I just knew that there had to be a better way to be able to take your pet wherever you go. So I first started with the airline industry and working with each airline individually. My first airline was American Airlines, and I had to go in and I had to go to where they were located, their headquarters were located, and I had to demonstrate to them that this was a better way that they could increase their revenue and be more competitive in the day and age of when everyone is trying to be better than the other one, and how to be able to service their customers in a much broader, expansive way that had this small dog. You know, cats really don't want to be traveling too much. But the cats go in the bag too, as well. So, whatever you have, a cat or a dog, it's safety wherever you go. And in a home, it's a home within a home. So, where anything that's going on, where you have construction or anything that's happening, or it doesn't even matter, they just love that den environment so
Mhm.
they can be safe and secure and comfortably placed.
Now, what was this like? I mean, you had a vision. You created an invention, this Sherpa pet carrier bag, and you decided to say, I am going to go tackle an entire industry that is not letting pets in the cabin of airplanes.
Right.
Where this the guts to even try to tackle an entire industry that's a behemoth like the airline industry?
Well, the thing was, it's like pets are part of the family. They've become more so as people realize all the benefits and everything that the pets provide to us, the dogs and the cats. And so I wanted to be able to make it possible. Why wouldn't you want to be able to take your loving, true love with you? And so I had to work with each airline one by one and would work with their policies and procedures department. And I would go into a room, let's say, with like 15 people, then nobody would even know I had a dog with me. And she would be in the bag, and I would have the bag on top of the table, the big conference table. And so then we would talk about the different points of taking a pet with you on a plane and the rules that needed to be implemented, the regulations, and all the things that people needed to know so that they could learn how to do this because preparation is the key. You don't just take a pet on a plane. You need to prepare them to be in their home within a home where she prefers to be right now. And then it was to show it to the airlines and make it possible for people to be able to take their pet with them.
What were the first reactions when you called people up and said, "Hi, I'm Gayle Martz. I've got this idea that I think you should let me show you. I have this carrier bag I created, and I want you to let me, meet with you so I can tell you why pets belong on a plane in the cabin and won't be a distraction or a problem for people." What was that initial reaction?
Well, first they couldn't understand how it had to be done. And
Mhm.
then again, when you wanted to be competitive in the day and age with the airlines, and that's what it was all about. And then revenue. So you have that thing about revenue because there had to be a fee
A
involved.
benefit for them.
Yeah, so it really did. So it benefited them so they could better service their premium passengers, whether you're sitting in coach or business or first class or whatever cabin you're in. There's only a certain amount of dogs, really, because cats aren't traveling that much. It's just really, let's talk about dogs right now for this
Mhm.
interview. So, dogs that they have to be small enough. They have the rules of being able to stand up, turn around in the bag, be comfortable in the bag, have plenty of ventilation, and they just have to be trained beforehand on the benefits of all the things that they have. Whereas Coco just goes right in her bag because she knows that she's safe and she's comfortable, and then she can go with me wherever I go. If she sees me getting dressed, she's ready to go.
Now, I'm curious. You went around, what was the order of the release of a product like this? You went to airlines first, you created a prototype and then brought it to airlines. How did this unfold? As because you created a very big company and
Yes,
all around
I
the clock.
did. Yes, I really did. Well, I was created a category. So
Hmm.
the category I created was the soft-sided pet carrier. So I filled a void there. First, you have to find a void to fill. And the void was you couldn't get your pet on a plane. And safety in a car is very, very important because you don't want your pet jumping from the front to the back and all around. So it was really to make it that way so they could be safe in a car, very safe in a car, be seat belted in their Sherpa bag, and then also on a plane, the rules and regulations had to be changed with everything. So they wanted to know, mainly they were interested in how they could better service their customers and then bring the revenue in and be competitive in this day and age. That was really important.
So you're pitching the airlines. Had you mass produced this product yet? Or did you say, I need to get the airlines on board first, then I'll create more?
No, no,
How
no,
did that
no.
process work?
First I started with the Sherpa bag, so that it could be people could understand that, if you're going, let's just say if you go to the veterinarian or, if you want to be able to take your pet anywhere you go, they needed to not be running around all over the place. They needed to be in a home, their den environment, because that's how they're brought
Mhm.
up is to be in that den environment. So it was really important that I created that, and there was no competition at all because nobody else had the idea, and I had, the idea and then I had knowledge of the airline industry, the automotive industry, and in the home, and just travel, period. And
You
trains,
said
forget about that trains as well.
Now you said you started the category of soft-sided pet carrier. So
Exactly.
prior it was just those like plastic crates, right?
That's exactly right. It was the hard plastic cake crate. So I became the alternative to the hard plastic so I that's how I marketed myself as the alternative to the hard plastic case, and everything and in that period of time was moving in the luggage industry because I was in the luggage industry. I was working
Mhm.
in the luggage industry. I had designed handbags and different things for people. And
Mhm.
so from that experience, I knew how to, I had some background and I had a manufacturer, a person that I was working with, and then I knew at that point that you couldn't produce it in the United States because it was just prohibited with the pricing. So that was one of the factors, was to keep the pricing down so
Mm,
that people could afford to be able to take their pet wherever they go or be safe at home
mhm.
or whatever you want to be able to do with your dog or cat. Mainly dogs, though. So let's speak about dogs.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's fascinating how you identified that gap, which is what, you hear on shows like Shark Tank or anybody who's an
Yeah,
innovator. It's find the gap. Find
exactly.
something that's important.
That's a void in the marketplace, and Sherpa was on, I mean, I was on all of those television shows. In the beginning, I did major publicity
Mhm.
with the magazines, with the television, with the radio, major podcasts and interviews, and I was written up in newspapers and all over so people would be educated. I think that was really funny. I lived in New York City, so right around the corner was the newsstand, and one of the headlines was "Ex-stewardess finds $1 million in doggy bag." And
Is
so
that a New
then
York Post headline? It sounds
that was
like one.
on page 6 of Cindy Adams. Cindy Adams wrote a lot about Sherpa and everything, and Cindy, of course, I gave her many bags for her dogs and everything, but she wrote a lot about, Sherpa, and that really, and then more people wrote about it, and more people wrote about it, and then it's like you have lists. I had my mother who was, without her, my financial house would not have been in order because I'm
Mhm.
the design and the motivation and the public relations part, and my mother was the financial house in order. So she would keep the books. I'm going through papers here now, where, so here is the price, and this is the cost, to have it done. And then from that cost, then you have to take the shipping costs and the delivery costs and all the factors that come into it. And then you have to build your audience to be able to get out to them. And the best way to do that was through the publicity, as you know.
You know, I can't imagine the course you could teach young entrepreneurs on how
Yeah,
to create a category and all the things, the ups and downs, the challenges that, you face trying to build a brand, create a new innovative idea, get people
right.
to believe it's good. I mean, I can imagine people said, "Oh, this is a lot easier to carry than a crate." So I can see that side. But you had to market it to pet stores. You had to market it to places where, who would give it space so they could buy it.
Yes, absolutely. And the main thing was getting the publicity out, which we know that's the most important thing, is so you can get, contacting the editors. And my mother did the mailing list, to so many, at that time we didn't have computer.
Mhm.
Way back then, we didn't have the computers like we have now, and she would write it all down, and then we would do mailings to all of the stores and everything, and she would do that for me. She was really why my business was successful because my financial house was totally in order with her taking care of that end. Most important.
Hmm. Um, as your business grew, what were some of the most challenging obstacles you had over the years, in innovating and moving things, learning how to get things across from other countries where maybe you were getting them manufactured? What were some of the big challenges you had to overcome in the marketplace?
Well, I had to, learn because I was in the handbag industry. So I had to learn. I had contacted the man I was working with, and he had given me the name of a manufacturer. So I actually began my business in Korea at that time because that was where it was the place to go. China was restricted out of the equation then. So I began in Korea. And so then, with my background, I would be able to fly to Korea, which is, hours away, many, many hours away. And then I would work with the factories and they would pick me up and drive me around. I remember my hotels that I would stay, one hotel I would stay at the Hyatt in Korea. And then, I would be picked up and driven to the factory and work with the different people. So I would have, like, a team of maybe 15 people at the table, so that we could work on all the different facets of the bag to make it better and more comfortable and stylish, of course.
Of course, because you're Gayle Martz.
Yes, I am.
Always stylish, eternally stylish.
Thank you. Well, it's really yeah, it needed to be something that was low profile. So you really wanted to be low profile so people didn't know because there's people that don't like pets. And so you had to be very low profile. And so I wrote up travel tips and travel tales. I wrote travel tips and Sherpa the dog wrote travel TAILS. So we had to educate people. So on every Sherpa bag was hanging the travel tips and the travel tales. So when people went into the store, they could read about how to do this and how to train their pet and all the different facets that were involved with getting their pet into the bag, into a car, safely at home, onto a plane, onto a boat, any mode of transportation was what the Sherpa bag was used for. But safety in the home was really the most important thing as well, so that they always felt safe and comfortable in their den because they are the creatures that love that den environment.
I'm always fascinated when I've spoken with you about the fact that you always zoom in on that safety first
It
motto.
is key. It is key because you really want to be very sure that everything that's done with the product that you're creating must be safe for the pet to be in. And then, and regarding the ventilation, I worked with all different types of mesh for the proper ventilation, the one that looked the right and was the right way. So you wouldn't even know that they were in the bag. So it's like if you look at this bag,
You'd never know.
you never know because it just looks like a regular tote around town. And the only difference is it has a pet inside.
And let's talk about training your pet.
Yes.
I have met Coco, your current dog, and I am thoroughly impressed about the absence of barking, which would be a big issue if someone's carrying a pet onto a plane and that dog, let's say, barks throughout the whole flight. So, how
That's
do you
not allowed. That's completely not allowed. So the thing was, it was always I remember the very first trips, it was overseas as well, where, they you would look at them and go,
Mhm.
and just calm them. You always wanna keep them calm, but you first wanna, make them aware of their environment, and then to be calm, and then to know that it's safe for them, and very comfortable for them. That was
Was
the
it
most
hard to
important.
convince airlines that they're saying, "Wait a second, yeah, we might be making more money with this, but people are people, they're gonna bring their pet on the plane, their dog on the plane, it's gonna be barking, then we're gonna be dealing with complaints." How did you overcome those kind of hurdles when you were trying to get policy rewritten?
Yeah, the policy was rewritten because I had to convince them that the pets loved the bag and they had to be trained before. So it's like so much when I would write up my travel tips and Sherpa would write travel tales, that all of those factors were written up in those two things that were attached to the bag so
Mhm.
that people could read that and know how to prepare for their trip. and what they had to do in advance to be totally prepared.
In the aftermath, did you ever get any complaints from airlines that said, I'm not happy we went this way?
Oh, no, I never did, not at all. Everybody was very happy, and
Mhm.
it went one by one by one, each airline one by one by one, and it was I had changed all the major airlines except Delta Airlines. That was the last one I did. It was in 1994, and they didn't allow any, of course, any pets on board at all, so I flew to Atlanta with, Sherpa in the bag and in her Sherpa bag, and I thought when we go back to why I called it the Sherpa bag, everybody loved Sherpa the dog. They thought she was the cutest thing in the world. And so I had to have her with me to demonstrate all the benefits and show them how safe and how comfortable and how stylish it was. To have them in their home, it's really important in the home. It's so important. First, take it in the home, and then you don't have to go anywhere at all, but you want it in the home so that they have that den environment that belongs to them in the home. And then I had 3 years where I had not one person at all that had done anything resembling it, and then after 3 years, we used to do the, trade shows. So I would do the luggage show, the pet product show, all the different shows that there were to do. And then I would have the bags there, and then I would be able I started with 1 black medium original Sherpa bag. So that was how I started. And I was just going through my pricing and my different things like that. And, the dimensions had to be so it could conform on the plane to underneath the seat dimensions. So then I had to make it so the wiring in the back could go under the seat and conform, and it had to be exactly the right measurements to fit under the seat and not get in the way of your feet or anything else. So it was really exciting for me. I really loved every part of it.
It's really interesting how you translated your experience of working with the airlines with luxury product design, with, carrier pocketbooks, purses, and merge this all together
Yeah.
to make this passion project that transformed an industry.
Yes, I filled the void. That's what you wanna do, fill a void in the marketplace. So at that time, it didn't exist, and it needed to be filled, and it required major work. Well, it's my life. When you do what you love what you do. So I loved every part of what I did, and what you don't do well, you make sure that part is taken care of, like Connie took care of the financial house in order. So everything is taken care of so that you can go to each different facet of whatever market it is you're getting into, but you wanna know your market and you wanna see what shop the market is what you have to do first. So, because I was living in New York and I was flying overseas, so I saw what was happening in the United States, and then I saw what was happening overseas, mainly because I was flying to Paris or London or Germany or where Italy or wherever I was going. So, and then I would get to know the pet stores that were there and one by one. So I had to start with them, like it had to be on minimum orders, like you had to have a minimum order of 3 bags, big deal. So you would just take three
Start
bags.
somewhere.
Yeah, I started with just, 3 bags somewhere, and then I just started with 1 medium, then that was the bag that's the bag that today everybody has copied. So you see there's a proliferation of soft-sided pet carriers, but they're all really copies of Sherpa bags, or for the most part, really what they were, and then new people came out with different things, but for
Now was
3
that
years.
as a patent? Was this a patented product when you came out with it, and then did the patent run out so people started to copy it, or how did that work?
No, no, you didn't have a patent. Well, I did, but it didn't matter because the patent it wasn't really going to protect you because all somebody has to do is change one thing on the bag, and then it becomes something entirely different.
Mhm.
So it wasn't that the patent was what was being done, but the one thing that you wanna do when you have a name, you come up with a name. So the Sherpa bag, so, there was a theme, because the Sherpa guides, I went with the theme of, Tenzing Norgay and William Hillary in the Himalayas, and they're traveling and trekking, and, that's what you were doing, but you had a pet in a bag, and that was what it was meant to be, so that you could be out in the marketplace filling a void. And that's what you have to do is fill the void.
How many, it's you have an interesting conundrum with the Sherpa bag was that it's kind of like Band-Aid, you know,
Yes,
a
exactly.
Band-Aid or Xerox. People said, they were making a Xerox copy, whether they were using a Xerox machine or not. You
Right.
created such an iconic brand with the Sherpa soft-sided pet carrier. When all
Exactly.
those other brands came out, those Me Too's and copies, I
Yes.
wouldn't be surprised if they all charted to say, "Well, it's the Sherpa bag, it's just another."
They all said that. I would go in and they would say that we have Sherpa bags. I went over, it was like 3 years after. I said, "But these are just copies."
Mm,
And they had copied every single thing, absolutely every single thing that I had done. So you have to pick where you're going
right,
to spend your money and what you're going to be doing, and the litigation and the different things is not developing the product and
mhm,
sending it forward. You have to keep building your marketing and your public relations and moving your designs forward so you can change, like I started with black. Well, then, of course, after that, then you had to have a different color, so it just depended on what it was. But black was always the number one and is the
mhm.
number one bestseller.
Hmm. To budding entrepreneurs today, what would your
Yes.
advice be to them?
Well, first, I always say do what you love with the people you love and the places that you love. And you have to find a void in the marketplace. And the void in the marketplace is what you want to be able to fill that void in the marketplace and then provide something that solves the situation so that it can be useful and people just love it, and they're able to benefit from all of the attributes of having a Sherpa bag, because if you love your pet, why wouldn't you want to take your pet wherever you go? Or even if you don't go, keep the she's in her bag now. She doesn't wanna be out anywhere else. She wants to be safe right by me in her Sherpa bag. Well, again, it's the same thing, find a void in the marketplace,
Mhm.
and then you have to do what you love. So if it's an industry that you don't love or a product that you don't love or you're not gonna love what you're doing, then go on to something else till you find what it is that you truly would love to do, but that fills the void in the marketplace and it helps other people to have a better life. If you really, there it was, why couldn't you take your pet with you? And, I made it happen so you could be safe at home, comfortable in a car, safe in a car, and be able to get onto an airplane. But the airplanes, that's a small percentage now with everything because everything has changed with all of the things that are going on with the airlines. But you really wanna have safety at home. That's your most important thing right now, and then if you have a car, you wanna be safe in the car. But mainly at home, keep them at home. It's where they
That's a
love
good
to be.
point.
Yeah, keep them at home, and that's where they love to be.
Well, my guest today has been Gayle Martz. She is an innovator, an inventor, an industry category creator, a businesswoman extraordinaire who continues to innovate, speak, teach, share what she's learned about her career of inventing the Sherpa bag and making pet travel far easier than it would have been if you had to carry one of those big heavy crates everywhere you went. She
Well, it
totally
made it
created the
possible.
industry.
It made it possible because you weren't allowed to do it, so I made it possible for you to take your pet with you, and now there's a proliferation of bags that are out there, but then I move on to something else and do whatever it is that I do next. You always wanna find a void in the marketplace, And again, do what you love.
Great advice. Again, thank you, Gayle, for joining me. I'm Diane Grissel. This is the Silver Expedience Perception Dynamics podcast. My guest has been Gayle Martz. There will be all kinds of links below so you can follow her and see what she's doing because she's just a really special, smart, brilliant, creative, talented woman. So it's a pleasure. Thank you, Gayle.
Thank you, Diane. It's always my pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
Gayle, we're moving over to the green room. Everybody hit subscribe and share this with your pet-loving friends. Thank you.
Thank you.